Historically, for thousands of years this site was made up of swamps and heath vegetation where indigenous peoples lived. Only a small number of European settlers lived in the district by the first half of the 19th century. The decision in the 1850s to transplant destitute children from central Sydney into this rural locality was pivotal in bringing attention of Sydney society to the district. The Asylum for the Relief of Destitute Children was officially opened in 1858. When it was determined in 1915 that the facility was needed for servicemen returning from World War I, the children were dispersed, and the suite of magnificent sandstone buildings on Avoca Street, constructed between 1856 and 1880, were transformed into a hospital. When the heir to the British throne visited Australia in 1920, this was named the Prince of Wales Hospital. Horse racing was held spasmodically from the 1840s at what was known as the Sandy Track. From the 1860s, this track was a permanent fixture, and so Randwick became one of Australia's preeminent centres for horse racing in what is now known as Randwick Racecourse. In 1949, the University of New South Wales was originally based in the city under the name of Sydney Technical College. As it expanded, they expanded into current-day site in Kensington. Its name was changed to University of New South Wales in 1958, and in 1960 established a Faculty of Medicine. Randwick Health and Education Precinct is a New South Wales Government vision for a state-of-the-art $720 million redevelopment that will include a new acute services building built to the west of the existing Randwick Hospital's campus. The redevelopment will also include a new emergency department, extra beds, new operating theatres, and expanded rehabilitation and ambulatory care facilities. In addition, a master plan for a dedicated mental health precinct has also been completed. The Randwick campus redevelopment is being led by South Eastern Sydney Local Health District, the Prince of Wales Hospital, in collaboration with the Sydney Children's Hospital, Royal Hospital for Women and UNSW, and is due for completion in 2022. The precinct has various cultural, heritage and environmental areas of significance. The remains of the Children's Asylum and the associated cemetery, also the old Tote and Fig Tree Conservation Area, and Randwick Racecourse. In terms of slope analysis, the graph shows the slope of the site and its surrounding areas, which came out by using Slope Tool and ARCH9080 to analyse the 1 metre digital elevation model, downloaded from Geoscience Australia. As we can see, the site approximately has 4 segments that have obvious different slopes. One continuous highland passes through the middle of the site, and another highland is where the Randwick Hospital complex is. Hence, this topography puts a threat of flooding on the demolition area which is between the 2 highlands. The other parts of the site are all existing areas. The precinct has 2 types of microclimates. The place with heavy vegetation is cooler than its surrounding, and on the other hand, the areas with massive surface parking and concrete buildings absorb heat and make the place warm. In the footage, this is one of the surface parkings provided in the health and precinct area, making the area warm due to heat absorbance. The Innovation Precinct is part of a larger area, landscaped in the late 19th century, following Victorian garden-esque style guidelines. This included large growing species, ideally suited to grand garden schemes. Charles Moore and J.H. Maiden, directors of the Sydney Royal Botanic Gardens, promoted Moreton Bay figs and Port Jackson figs as key components for public park planting during this period. The collection continues a historic thematic planting palette within the Randwick area. Both native and exotic species coexist in this precinct. The condition of the vegetation is good, although most of the specimens are relatively aged. So a gradual and continuous renovation should be implemented in order to preserve the cycle of growth for future generations. The study area is an innovation precinct, hence the prevalent building use is education and healthcare. Since accessibility to the precinct is a major issue, a large area has been dedicated to surface parking in both education and healthcare campuses. The major streets that bind the precinct have cars parked on either side. To cater to increasing volumes of parking, buildings to park cars are constructed. In the first footage, the surface parking with the education precinct along with the parking station can be seen in the background. Another surface parking along with the parking station adjacent to it on the right-hand side can be seen in the healthcare precinct. The parking station within the UNSW campus along the Baker Street. The majority of the buildings along major streets have setbacks. Although these setbacks are used for plantations in many of them are being used as surface parking, giving rise to urban heat islands. In the first bit of footage, we can see surface parking within the setbacks in the health precinct. In the second video, we can see surface parking provided in the setback along Edmund Blackett Building and Avoca Street. Most buildings are between 1 to 5 stories. The tallest building is the UNSW Library, with more than 10 stories. It causes overshadowing in the adjacent areas. The studied area is approximately 66 metres above sea level, High Street, allowing views of the Racecourse, Centennial Park, Moore Park, and the CBD skyline to the north, and of the East Lakes Park, Mascot, and Botany Bay to the west. Access to the site is primarily through private motor vehicle. The area has about 30 bus stops within walking distance of the precinct. There are cycling maps that lead you to UNSW from the city, however they run along busy roads and do not have separate cycle paths. Many students would be able to walk from on-site student accommodation, but this would be a small proportion of the population travelling to and from the precinct. The light rail is being constructed currently with 2 lines connecting to the precinct, one at the Anzac Parade end and one at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital on High Street end. This map shows the connection of the site with essential areas in the rest of Sydney. As we can see, the site has a perfect location and is approximately the same distance to the city centre, Sydney Airport and Port Botany. Currently, the primary mode of transport connecting to the site is private motor vehicle. In the future, there will be 2 light rails, which will be the first public transport that has a large capacity to connect Randwick and the city centre. Based on vehicle-driven development, preventing low-density urban sprawl is quite urgent in Randwick, so as to decrease the distance travelled to the precinct from surrounding suburbs. On a smaller scale, the site also has a perfect location in Randwick. Anzac Parade Road, which is the primary road in Randwick, passes through the site. Also, in the future, proposed light rail lines will be on this road. There are 3 commercial centres around the site in 3 different directions. Similarly, the site is close to Centennial Park, Moore Park and Royal Randwick Racecourse. The Randwick Health and Education Precinct has a lot of positive ecological values, for instance an abundance of vegetation and biodiversity, supporting Randwick Raceway. Similarly, newer developments such as the Lowy Cancer Research Centre has a Green Building Council of Australia 5-star rating. However, its weaknesses are mainly due to its connectivity and accessibility issues stemming from poor public transport connection from the city, the airport and surrounding suburbs, creating a heavy reliance on private motor vehicle. This can be seen in the campus and surrounding streets, as there is a lot of on-street parking and parking inside the campus that could be replaced by social and public spaces to support the innovation characteristics of the precinct. Also, the surrounding suburbs, as a result of this lack of connectivity, have resulted in low-density developments, and thus urban sprawl means a heavier reliance on private motor vehicle to travel to and from the innovation precinct. Demolition of the residential block in itself is not sustainable and has displaced local residents.